Is there anything? Is there anything at all that can be said that would find the ear of every person? Hmm, that's a tough one. Even if you are the eternal optimist, these days you might have doubt. People have always had their differences of opinion, but in the present moment, that is, February 2017, there are vast gulfs separating people with vehemently held views, which in the political sphere we call polarization. Opposing sides cannot talk to one another, they cannot argue their various points. Civil discourse seems to be yet another casualty of this age. Rather, there is only yelling at one another across the chasm, with insults hurled to effect a psychological blow in the hopes that the enemy might be weakened before the clash on the field of battle. When anger has been building for some time inside of people, it is as though the angry have become possessed. The ability to even be civil has, for a time, been banished. A people possessed of anger may recover in time, but it is usually only after a bloodletting. In the spilling of blood, anger's thirst is quenched. That sounds horrific, but our history is filled with such horror. We ought not to assume that this time it is different, that we will never again descend to disorder and violence of that scale, that somehow we've outgrown our destructive tendencies. I admit to feeling anxious about our situation because how does one even start a conversation? Does an olive branch even exist? Is there a common denominator that can be held up that no one will object to? We need something to believe in that some group won't automatically reject. A starting point to build upon. Something to help us calm down and distract us for long enough from our foul moods and the anger that is bubbling up in so many. A sigh, a deep breath. Within breathing, in a way such as this, an emotion is revealed. It is a somewhat tired admission. In the sigh is a weariness, almost one of surrender, to the acceptance of defeat, and not just my own defeat, but also for humanity's writ large. For the scale of the crisis, and the anger, and the fear, and the pride that must be counteracted against is so horrendously overwhelming. Breathing is so natural. It turns out I've been doing it all my life, and I'm pretty sure that so have you. The one that is out there, the watcher, the listener. Perhaps breathing itself is a starting point. No human can go for long without it. You might go for quite a while without food, even a couple of days without water. But how long can you go without breathing? Life's beginning and life's ending is bracketed by breathing. There was your first breath, and there will be your last. We mostly take this activity for granted, this breathing. Our bodies do the task for us automatically. We don't give breathing much thought. I'm pretty sure I was breathing all the while that I was writing these words down, but I mostly didn't give it a thought. Only in the last few paragraphs did I start to consciously think about breathing because, well, it became a subject. Thinking about breathing in a time of troubles reminds me of the words spoken before I was even born by President John F. Kennedy on June the 10th, 1963, in a commencement address at the American University of Washington, D.C. I quote one paragraph of his speech, which is particularly pertinent here. Let us all not be blind to our differences, but let us also direct attention to our common interests and to the means by which those differences can be resolved. And if we cannot end now our differences, at least we can help make the world safe for diversity. For in the final analysis, our most basic common link is that we all inhabit this small planet, we all breathe the same air, we all cherish our children's future, and we are all mortal. End quote. President Kennedy's words were an inspired plea for rational thinking at a time of heightened fear, just 8 months after the Cuban Missile Crisis, while the world was still on edge, thinking nuclear war was imminent. His words can hold equal power for us today, where dialogue has broken down in so many ways, on so many issues. The appeal to what unites us, our most basic common links, including the very air we breathe, is an appeal to the beginning of things, to the beginning of rational dialogue, and to a process of resolution. What better way to start that process than by taking a deep breath, or several? If you are so inclined, why not pause this post and try a few deep breaths now? I can wait. There is something about taking a few deep breaths. It seems to clear the cobwebs out of the mind, and perhaps it diffuses the negative emotions a little. Think about the process of breathing. When you take some deep breaths and fill your lungs, you boost your oxygen levels in your blood. This counteracts the stressful emotions associated with the flight or fight response and the shallow breathing. Deep breathing helps to stimulate the parasympathetic nervous system within the body, which helps the body secrete the suite of hormones that calm a person. I have always found that taking a few deep breaths calms me when I'm feeling stressed. Deep breathing, or even better, mindful breathing, seems to correlate with thinking clearly, as opposed to the stressed mind and shallow breathing, which is on edge and can be rash and almost unthinking. By now, you might have noticed that this post is different from the earlier posts. If you have been a regular to this site, those earlier posts were more structured arguments surrounding the various aspects of our potential hellish reality. This post is something of a transition to what I shall call the pitch posts. It wasn't too long into this episode that I brought myself into it by using the pronoun I. For these next several posts, I have not yet figured out how many there will be, I will be making a pitch of sorts. I am thinking to take this to the next level because I feel I must. I have been finding the courage of my convictions at the same time that I witness all that seems to be happening in the world that is flirting with disaster, that is tempting the darkness that lives in the abyss. In a couple of earlier episodes, I mentioned noble individuals that do good work. I think that I too have something to contribute, and I think it is unique. I remind myself of the words that have often been uttered by many a leader imploring action. If not you, then who? If not now, then when? JFK himself had the occasion to utter these words, but they are traceable back to an ancient Jewish scholar and religious teacher, Hillel the Elder. They are highly useful words to live by when you need to compel yourself to some action.
And for me, that time has come. Hello again. And now, let us practice our breathing. This episode got me thinking about breathing and how breathing and living are inseparable. If fear and stress are found with shallow breathing, and deep breathing and clear thinking are found together, and if the ultimate deepest fear is death, and really death is the root of all fear, then you might conclude that because there is so much fear and other negative emotion in the world right now, we are, in a perverse kind of way, embracing death because too many people are stuck in shallow breathing. So the antidote would be to just breathe more deeply and think more clearly and drive away all of this fear and death stuff. If only it were that simple. But in some ways it is. It is a starting point. You've got to start somewhere. It seems logical to start with some deep breathing. At the risk of sounding creepy with all of this breathing, I will sign off, but with another cheesy observation. If shallow breathing and fear and death are wrapped up together, then deep breathing and life and hope must be wrapped up together, like the other side of the equation. After a few deep breaths, I do feel hopeful. My mind races to possibilities. This could be fun. See you later.